Have you ever wondered whether some dreams are meant to be achieved or simply outgrown? Most of us spend years believing that the greatest tragedy in life is failing to reach the goals we care about. We are encouraged to dream bigger, work harder, and remain committed even when the journey becomes exhausting. Society admires those who refuse to quit. Stories of perseverance are celebrated everywhere, reinforcing the idea that determination will eventually lead to fulfillment. Yet there is another experience, far less discussed but equally significant: the moment when you finally reach a dream you once fought for, only to discover that it no longer feels like home. At first, this realization can be deeply unsettling. After all, how do you explain feeling disconnected from something that once gave your life direction? For years, that dream may have shaped your decisions, influenced your priorities, and provided a sense of purpose during difficult times. It was the destination that justified the sacrifices. It was the promise that made uncertainty easier to tolerate. You convinced yourself that happiness existed somewhere ahead, waiting patiently at the end of the struggle. Then one day, after countless hours of effort and persistence, you arrive. The achievement is real. The recognition is real. The success is real. Yet the emotional reward you expected never fully arrives. Instead of fulfillment, there is confusion. Instead of certainty, there is an uncomfortable question. What if the dream no longer belongs to the person I have become? What makes this experience particularly painful is that it challenges one of the most powerful assumptions we carry throughout life. We tend to imagine our future selves as slightly improved versions of who we are today. We assume that the things we want now will continue to matter in 10 or 20 years. However, personal growth rarely follows such a predictable path. Human beings are constantly evolving. Our values shift as we accumulate experiences. Our priorities change as we encounter success, disappointment, love, loss, responsibility, and uncertainty. The person who first imagined a dream is often very different from the person who eventually achieves it. Yet we rarely account for this possibility when we make plans for the future. Many dreams are born during specific stages of life and reflect the needs we have at that moment. A young adult may dream of professional success because they crave recognition and independence. Someone who has experienced financial insecurity may become determined to build wealth because stability feels essential. Another person may pursue status because they believe admiration will bring confidence and self-worth. These motivations are not necessarily wrong. In many cases, they provide the energy required to move forward. The problem arises when we assume that the needs driving us today will remain unchanged forever. What once felt absolutely essential can gradually lose its emotional significance as our understanding of ourselves becomes more complex. This is why outgrowing a dream often feels less like abandoning a goal and more like experiencing an identity crisis. Dreams are rarely separate from our sense of self. Over time, they become woven into the stories we tell about who we are and who we hope to become. We introduce ourselves through our ambitions. We organize our lives around future achievements. We imagine a version of ourselves that will finally feel complete once a particular milestone has been reached. Consequently, when the dream begins to lose its meaning, it is not only the goal that feels uncertain. Our entire self-concept can suddenly seem unstable. Consider the individual who dedicates 15 years to building an impressive career. They invest enormous amounts of time, energy, and emotional commitment into reaching a position they once considered ideal. Along the way, they sacrifice leisure, relationships, and countless opportunities for immediate comfort. Eventually, they achieve what they set out to accomplish. From the outside, everything appears successful. Friends admire them, colleagues respect them, family members feel proud of their achievements. Yet, internally, a different reality exists. The excitement that once fueled their ambition has disappeared. The work no longer inspires them. The rewards no longer feel meaningful. They are left confronting a difficult truth. The version of themselves that wanted this life no longer exists. One of the reasons people struggle to accept this truth is because of the enormous emotional investment attached to long-term goals. The more effort we dedicate to something, the more difficult it becomes to question whether it still deserves our commitment. We fear that changing direction would invalidate the sacrifices we have already made. We tell ourselves that walking away would mean wasting years of hard work. As a result, many individuals continue pursuing goals that no longer align with their values simply because they feel trapped by their past decisions. They remain loyal to a dream long after the dream has stopped serving them. Paradoxically, this attachment often creates more suffering than letting go ever would. When people continue moving toward destinations that no longer resonate with them, they may achieve impressive results while simultaneously feeling increasingly disconnected from their own lives. They become successful according to standards they no longer believe in. They accumulate accomplishments that fail to provide genuine satisfaction. Over time, this disconnect can lead to a profound sense of emptiness. Everything appears right on the surface, yet something essential feels missing beneath it. Perhaps the most difficult aspect of outgrowing a dream is the guilt that frequently accompanies the process. We worry about disappointing those who supported us. We worry about appearing ungrateful. We worry that others, who would gladly trade places with us, might not understand why we are dissatisfied. These concerns often prevent honest self-reflection. Instead of acknowledging that our priorities have changed, we convince ourselves that we simply need more discipline, more motivation, or more patience. We assume the problem lies within us rather than considering the possibility that our aspirations have evolved. However, growth sometimes requires acknowledging uncomfortable realities. Maturity is not merely about pursuing goals with determination. It is also about recognizing when a goal no longer reflects who you are. This distinction is important because persistence and attachment are not the same thing. Persistence involves continuing because something remains meaningful. Attachment involves continuing because you are afraid of what might happen if you stop. The first is rooted in purpose. The second is rooted in fear. Unfortunately, many people confuse the two and spend years mistaking emotional dependence for dedication. Another misconception worth challenging is the belief that abandoned dreams represent failure. We often evaluate our lives through the lens of outcomes, assuming that value exists only in what we ultimately achieve. Yet this perspective overlooks the transformative power of the journey itself. Some dreams are not meant to remain with us forever. Their purpose may be to teach us lessons, develop our character, or guide us toward experiences that shape our future in unexpected ways. Even if a dream eventually loses its relevance, the growth it inspired remains valuable. The discipline, resilience, courage, and self-awareness developed along the way do not disappear simply because the destination changes. In many cases, the dream accomplishes its purpose long before we realize it. It pushes us beyond our limitations. It introduces us to opportunities we would never have discovered otherwise. It teaches us what truly matters and, perhaps more importantly, what is not. Seen from this perspective, outgrowing a dream is not evidence that the dream was wrong. Rather, it may be evidence that it succeeded in helping us become someone new. The goal was never the final reward. The transformation was. This understanding requires a more flexible definition of success than the one most of us are taught. Success is often portrayed as a straight line connecting ambition to achievement. Yet real life is rarely so simple. Personal development is messy, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. Sometimes growth means pursuing a dream with everything you have. At other times, growth means having the courage to release that dream when it no longer aligns with your values. Both actions require strength. Both demand honesty. And both can play an essential role in creating a meaningful life. The challenge, of course, is that letting go creates uncertainty. Dreams provide structure. They offer a clear direction and a sense of purpose. When a dream loses its significance, we are forced to confront the uncomfortable reality of not knowing what comes next. Human beings naturally seek certainty, which is why many people remain attached to familiar ambitions even when those ambitions no longer inspire them. The unknown feels dangerous. Yet nearly every meaningful transformation begins with uncertainty. Before any new chapter can emerge, an old chapter must come to an end. Ultimately, outgrowing a dream is not a sign of weakness, inconsistency, or failure. It is often a sign that you have continued evolving while the dream remained unchanged. The aspirations that once reflected your deepest desires may no longer correspond to the person you have become. That realization can be painful, but it can also be liberating. It allows you to stop measuring your life according to outdated expectations and begin exploring what genuinely matters now. Perhaps the most important lesson is this: you do not owe lifelong loyalty to every version of yourself that has ever existed. The person you were 10 years ago made decisions based on the knowledge, experiences, and needs available at that time. You can honor that version of yourself without remaining trapped by their ambitions. Growth inevitably involves change, and change inevitably involves letting go. The dreams that once guided you were not mistakes. They were stepping stones. They helped you become who you are today. And maybe that is the hidden beauty behind this experience. The end of a dream does not necessarily mark the end of purpose. Sometimes it marks the beginning of a deeper and more authentic relationship with yourself. Sometimes the reason a dream no longer excites you is not because you failed to become the person you wanted to be. It is because you succeeded in becoming someone entirely different.